Larry is dead and none of us is Larry. And eventually went back, and of course, 17, so took all the liquor from the liquor cabinet, and I put it in a big blue suitcase, and I brought it back to Iowa City where, the guys that are in the band now, we all drank Larry's liquor together and started playing music, and that's why we're called Dead Larry.
Hello, my loyal subverts. I'm so thankful to have you here listening on Subversion, where I bring you a break from the chaos that is the typical media which you are consuming. I do hope that you understand that I take great care in bringing you the content that will help you relax and get into the mind of a musician, where you can leave here feeling refreshed, knowing that there are still great people out there in the world. I've always given a lot of pushback to that misanthropic notion that people are inherently corrupt. I truly do believe in the genuine goodness in people, yet I confront the reality that there is a lot of suffering in the world. That being said, I'd like to make an announcement that there is something that I've been meaning to do since the advent of this program, which is start promoting one charity project per episode. Two reasons for this. One, it gives you, my loyal listeners, an extra incentive to go out and share this program. Two, the more this program grows, the more we can create conduits of resources in places in the world which are less fortunate than us. The way we will raise money at first will be through free will donations, but it is my hope that sometime in the near future we will start to generate ad revenue, to which a majority of that will go to said charity projects on a per episode basis. This is where I'm directing my attention today. There's an orphanage in Kenya which needs your help. Now, this orphanage is not built yet, but the first step is to build a fence in order to keep chickens on their land and keep the poultry on this land protected from the theft of humans and creatures alike. You can find a link to this on the show notes, or simply go to donorc.com/project/595. Now on to today's interview, which was with Mark McGuiness. He's part of a band out of Iowa called Dead Larry, who are now based out of Minneapolis. You'll find out more about how I know these guys in this interview, but just so you know, their music has been really special to me, and it was really a treat to sit down and chat with Mark. As always, stick around to the very end so I can see you off for the week. Enjoy, friends.
Hi, my name is Mark McGuiness. I'm in Dead Larry, and I sing and play piano and write songs, and a little bit of synthesizer and guitar as well.
Nice. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your origin story kind of growing up? I know that you started Dead Larry out of out of Iowa City, right?
Yeah. So I moved around a lot when I was younger, and then eventually met up with all these guys that are in Dead Larry now, around high school. And, I guess, I took piano lessons when I was really young, and I hated it then. And, of course, now it's like my favorite thing ever. So, that was kind of, And then it was like then when I got into high school and everything, then I suddenly realized that the Beatles are awesome, and and I wanted to learn those songs. So
right. Yeah, I think I really wish I would have stayed with band when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because I was really, I spent one semester doing saxophone or something. I really wish that I would have been more driven to get into music when I was younger, because it would have helped me when I was trying to learn guitar and whatnot later in life. Yeah. But of course I was, very opposed to doing it because it was pushed on me.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think when I was younger too, you mentioned the Beatles. Mm-hmm. I think for a while I even had a sort of the Beatles kind of suck, because I was into nu metal and stuff like that when I was in middle school. But then I get into high school and I learned no, the Beatles they made music what it is today. Yeah. So I definitely have to have some sort of appreciation for it now. Yeah. But why don't you tell me, so you said you moved around a lot, where did all this start then?
My parents lived in different parts of Iowa and Minnesota. They were separated, so went a lot back and forth between them. I was in Catholic school until 8th grade. And then I went to, which was actually 2 different Catholic elementary schools, and then 2 different junior highs, I was actually in 5 different high schools.
Oh, jeez.
But I still started at Iowa City at City High and graduated from City High. But I was at 4 other ones briefly in between there.
So it all came back home at some point.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so and that's one thing that I really can't connect with other people on, because it seems like a lot of people have moved around to different schools, whereas I kind of had a boring childhood in that sense, where I went to the same school with the same people my entire life. But for you, it was mostly just around in Iowa, correct?
Yeah, and a little bit in Minnesota too, because I was actually born in Minneapolis.
Oh, okay.
And then mostly grew up in Iowa, but then I did actually go to 2 of those high schools were in Minnesota. So, because my dad was living in Minneapolis, so yeah, it's hard to get it all straight in there. But
yeah,
it's yeah, I mean, it was been interesting, I guess, meeting a lot of different people through the years. So
for sure.
Yeah.
So outside of music, what were some things that you did as a kid? Like, what kind of trouble did you get into?
Well, I mean, grew up an only child, so I mean, when I was younger, I really wanted to be a cartoonist. So I was always drawing, basically, just drawing all cartoons all the time. So that was my main thing back then. So.
Were you into comic books or anything like that? Is what made you get into that, or?
I mean, not well. I was into like. I mean, I loved like The Simpsons and Ren and Stimpy and like all those. Like I like to draw weird like Ren and Stimpy type things, and I just kind of like obsessed with 90s Nickelodeon stuff back then. So,
right on.
Yeah.
Do you remember? When I was a kid, there was Stickly.
Yep.
Was on.
Yeah.
I used to be a big Nickelodeon kid too. Some of my favorite cartoons were like some of the weird ones actually, like Ah Real Monsters.
Yep.
I like that one, and Beetlejuice.
Yep.
I don't know that was a Nickelodeon show necessarily. I think that was one of the Saturday morning like ABC shows. But so and I remember my mom came home one day when I was a kid, and me and my dad were watching Ren and Stimpy, and she got really pissed because not necessarily appropriate for a little kid, and I'm sure all of the jokes were just kind of over my head.
Yeah.
But as a kid, you really it doesn't matter what's really on the TV. It's just cartoons doing their silly cartoon thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm sort of curious what kind of music were you into then? Was your family a very musical family then?
Not really, actually. I mean,
yeah, because it's pretty typical if you send your kids to piano lessons and things like that maybe the rest of the family might have some sort of artistic inclinations or. Yeah,
no, it was mostly. I mean, I guess my mom and all her siblings just kind of like they all took piano lessons growing up, so it was just kind of like I don't know. I guess they just saw it as one of those things to you do when you're younger, just to I don't know, to have some other sense of structure other than school. So, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, or maybe she just thought that I had some musical talent in there and just wanted me to do that.
Well, she had a good intuition at least. What kind of music sort of inspired you when you were younger, like getting into your teens and things like that? What sort of shaped what kind of music you make now?
Well, first of all, taking those piano lessons, which I hated, and eventually, so I wouldn't hate it as much, my teacher let me just pick whatever I wanted to learn, and I ended up just learning like the whole Star Wars soundtrack.
Oh, nice.
So that was really, I was just, always really been into that kind of, just film scores kind of stuff. And then other than that, the biggest thing I was into when I was, younger was Weird Al.
Oh, nice.
I loved Weird Al.
I still like Weird Al.
Yeah. I got to meet him once when I was like 12.
Oh, nice.
So, and
I hear his live shows quite the thing.
Yeah, it was awesome as I remember, and then got to go backstage and everything. It was cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then got older, got into the Beatles and Pink Floyd and all that kind of stuff. And
I think we all go through the retro phase.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like you don't feel like anything good is coming out now. And I think maybe that was especially important I'm assuming you're around my age. I'm 27.
Okay. Yeah, I'm 30.
So the pop music of the time, there really wasn't all that much when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
Probably that was all that great to someone that may make or are into the kind of music that we might be. So
Yeah.
I can definitely see wanting to revisit our parents and grandparents' era of music. And I know some older folks. I work with this guy who's a baby boomer, and when I was going through that phase, I worked at this pizza place with him. And he would always say, "Oh, why don't you young kids get your own music? There's plenty of all this good music." And he actually showed me a lot of really great stuff that's out there right now.
Yeah.
Because he'll listen to public radio and whatnot, and showed me Death Cab for Cutie, which was really a weird, that's an emo band. I wouldn't have expected this guy to get me into this, but he did. And he showed me the New Pornographers. And, just a lot of really good music that was around at the time that I just wasn't opening my mind up to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I eventually got there too. Now I have, yeah.
Now it's like there's too much stuff to listen to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something I've been talking about recently with guests is how independent music and the undercurrent of media right now is sort of really competitive, because the days when I was younger, we would take a whole weekend and come up to the cities or something to go and see a show, where it seems like, I don't know, maybe it's just me being myopic, but I don't see that excitement as much for live music outside of my own circles as I used to. And maybe that has something to do with technology. I don't know, where people are more entertained sitting at home watching Netflix than I was, because I didn't have the internet. It was either TV or go out with my friends, you know. So it was a pretty good motivation to actually go out and go and see something.
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly. No, huge amount of competition, especially just for recorded music, because everybody can listen to. They have tons of options. So that's why I think actually then comes into the live show is important, because that's something that even if there are a lot of recording artists, they might not necessarily do the live show and production and that kind of stuff. So that's something that people can't get, I guess, through just YouTube. Technically.
Right.
I mean, you can, but it's not. So.
Right. Now, and I do have to hand it to you guys that you have a very good stage presence, and you're the kind of band that makes someone want to go out and actually see you and have a good time. Whereas, it seems like some younger bands, it's like they're sort of in the shoegaze. Yeah. Sort of, you could just kind of get that from sitting down and listening to the album at home, which, nothing against... any bands that don't go out of their way to make a big show. Yeah. But I think you guys do make a concerted effort to do that.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely, it's very important. I usually, I usually have to get just the right amount of caffeine and alcohol in me, because I know, I always, even if we're in front of a small group, I just always try and be very animated as much as I can. So
yeah, man. I mean, I remember having a ball with you guys just at the Laredo shows, and how many people can you fit in Laredo? It's probably not any more than 40 people at best if you really are crowding the place. Yeah. But it's still just a great time.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
That place, yeah. We've been playing there for so long, and it's just it gets pretty rowdy sometimes.
Yeah. One thing that always made me remember Dead Larry was the name of your guys' band. Now, why don't you tell for the listeners this story, because I've always gotten a kick out of it.
Sure, yeah. So the reason why we're called Dead Larry is it's not because my name is Larry, because we get that a lot. Larry is dead, and none of us is Larry. And but the thing is, so my grandparents had... it was basically, they lived in this big old mansion, basically, and it was separated into these multiple house-sized apartments, basically, that had been split up. And Larry was their neighbor, and he died, and he didn't have any family or anything, so his stuff just kind of stayed in his house for years, and the bank froze his assets, and nothing was touched. And when my grandparents died and were cleaning out their house, I went up into their attic and realized that the attic connected over to Larry's attic that was next door. And I was 17 then, so I ended up going down into his house, and nothing's been touched. His shoes are still by the bed. He's got cigarette butts in the ashtray, nothing's been touched. And so of course, the first thing I actually did was I took a suit and I wore it to my homecoming dance that night. at a Catholic school, and eventually went back, and of course, 17, so took all the liquor from the liquor cabinet, and I put it in a big blue suitcase, and I brought it back to Iowa City, where the guys that are in the band now, we all drank Larry's liquor together and started playing music, and that's why we're called Dead Larry.
Right on. So I suppose you guys were playing music together before this then? Or was this kind of right around the beginnings of what became Dead Larry?
Yeah, it was right around. Yeah, it was right around then, because yeah. But I think we had been playing music. Well, me and Joe had been playing music together a little bit already.
Okay.
So and then eventually it was during that time that we ended up with Josh, and then Ian, who was in our band originally. It was his idea for us to be called Dead Larry, but he's not in the band anymore. But and then we got Ned later on. So
okay.
After a few shows.
So how long was it from about this time to when you released your first album, which, if I remember looking, it was about 2009 where you guys released your first one?
Yeah, that's is that right?
I might be mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Yeah, but it was because it seemed like, because I think our very first show ever was like during like my senior year of high school. So, and then it was probably a few years after that we actually started touring, regularly and going outside of Iowa City and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Okay. So it was kind of a long time before you actually got all of the material together and professionally recorded everything, right?
Oh yeah. And I mean, because then that first, and recording's expensive too. So
I would imagine.
Yeah, it was doing all that, but yeah, I can't even think of what year it was.
That's fine.
But it was 2005 was our first show ever.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
And more or less, besides you said this guy Ian was the only outside who's not an original member that's in it anymore, right? I mean, you guys have been pretty constant with Ned, Josh, and Joe and yourself, right?
Yeah, there was just Ian who was briefly in the band playing bass, and then we also had this guy Dan who played guitar, and he was the guitar player during our first show. And then Ned our first show was a Battle of the Bands in which we lost, and the band that won was Ned's band, and basically Ned liked us, and he ended up leaving that band to come play with us. So
nice.
Yeah.
Kismet. So why don't we get into the music, and why don't we the one that I'm assuming is about Dead Larry himself, Dead Man's Clothes from that first album?
Yes.
So I don't suppose there's much of a story anymore behind that.
I guess
other than what we already talked about.
I mean, if I went into it more, I mean, obviously, yeah, because the Dead Man's Clothes, because I mean, worst clothes. So
yeah, wait, didn't you keep some of those clothes and you still wear them from time to time?
Yes, yeah, because for a while, I've got this crazy like blue plaid blazer that was his that I was wearing to shows all the time. For a while, I still have that, but it's fallen apart at this point.
Oh yeah, I'm sure after numerous shows.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I mean, other than that, I guess that song also references the car accident that I was in right around the beginning of Dead Larry 2, where my girlfriend at the time was killed in that accident. Oh, so it was kind of like, it was, that I think was actually a big point where Dead Larry started, like, because a lot of songs obviously came out of that period.
Sure.
So that definitely started that, and and I definitely reference her in Dead Man's Clothes because that all just happened, like within the same like 6 months. It was just like, and then there's like the little bridge where I'm saying like running a lot. And that what that refers to is I still to this day actually have this recurring nightmare where I am trapped in Larry's house and I'm about to get caught in there, and I have it regularly, and that's kind of what the kind of weird spacey bridge is supposed to be.
Sitting there, side of the bed, thinking
things that I should have said when she didn't come home last night. She didn't come home last night, no. Couldn't help but sit and stare at her smiling eyes and her jet black hair. Well, she didn't come home last night. She didn't come home last night, no. And on the story goes of the drunken boys in the dead man's clothes. She didn't come home last night, no. On the story goes of the widowed boy in the dead man's clothes. She didn't come home last night. She didn't come home last night, no. Right through my glasses and it made me run like a hot molasses. Well, I should have stayed home last night. I should have stayed home last night. Oh, sitting there, side of the rail with the crying eyes in a great hotel. I should have stayed home last night. I should have stayed home last night. But on the story goes of the drunken boys in the dead man's clothes. Should have stayed home last night. Oh, on the story goes, but only me and the dead man know. Should have stayed home last night. Should have stayed home last night. Like a hot molasses. That's why I'm running, 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 running. Running, 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 running. Running, 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 the story goes of the drunken boys in the dead man's clothes. Silent on the story goes, but only me and the dead man know. That's why I'm running, 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 running. place. 13 men on a dead man's suitcase. Glad I went there that night. Glad I went there that night. Oh, out on the road, kicking asses, brimming bowls and empty glasses. Glad I went there that night. Glad I went there that night. Oh, but on and on the story goes of the drunken boys and the dead man's clothes. Glad I went there that night. Glad I went there that night. Oh, on and on the story goes, but only me and the dead man know. Glad I went there that night. Glad I went there that Hopping over, raided the place. 13 men on a dead man's suitcase. Glad I went there that night. Glad I went there that night. Hopping over, raided the place. 13 men on a dead man's suitcase. Glad I went there that night.
Now, and I do remember
went there
almost
that
any
night.
time I've heard you guys, you've played this song. So this is still sort of a staple in your set list, I would imagine.
Yeah. Plus, it usually gives us a chance to, I can kind of tell the crowd why we're called Dead Larry, because that's usually, especially around new people, I mean, that is definitely something that people will, will remember usually. If I
Because
tell
it's
them
an
that.
obscure name, so
Yeah.
of course you're gonna get some sort of questions about it, I would imagine.
Yeah, and it usually gets a pretty good reaction out of people too.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and yeah, like I said, I mean that's a big reason why I, have a very specific memory of
Yeah.
you guys meeting you at Harmony Park. In fact, which I think we walked by your guys' set at 10K actually after we saw the flyers.
Yeah.
But then we saw you guys at Harmony Park, me and my friends, that is, and got a chance to hang out with you and stuff. And I
Yeah.
remember hearing that story and
Yeah.
getting quite a kick out of it. But yeah, so there's that. And then I think this is off of that record too, The Rook and the Russians.
Yeah.
Which you said has made a resurgence back into your set lists,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In light of recent events.
I don't know why. No, it just seems more relevant now. Well, all the songs that I picked to talk about are but they all have related. They're all about death. So.
Oh, okay.
Well,
and Joe did mention how there's this phenomenon with your guys' friendship and with Dead Larry where he's kind of the light, the yin to your yang, and that you bring more of the dark poetry and sort of influence into it, and that so I can definitely see why you would have picked these songs about death, given what he told me. So what specifically is this one all about then?
Okay, so this one was actually about I had a dog that this was after I'd been in Dead Larry for a while. So I had this dog that got out of the house, got hit by a car, but the weird thing that ended up happening was when he was there on the side of the road and he was dying and like bleeding, and this guy came out of the house that was right next to the street, and he was Russian, and he just came out and he just like put a chair down there, and had me sit in it. I'm just sitting there in front of my dog that's just died, and he comes out and brings me a vodka and Coke and a Valium, and he was just like, "It's okay, it'll be all right." And it was just, and then he helped me carry my dog's body back to my house, and it was just such a weird random this Russian guy.
Wait, can I break this down a little bit
Yeah,
more?
sorry,
So he brought a chair out into the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Where you're.
Oh no, it was up on the sidewalk. It was kind of because he kind of got bounced over to the sidewalk. So yeah, I'm just sitting there, all upset, and this guy just, it was pretty much right in his front yard, and he noticed, and he just comes out and gets me a chair so I can just sit there more comfortably to grieve, and then just gives me a drink. And it was just and then, but what's also weird is then eventually we were playing at this party and with this band, The Glitch, that was from Iowa City. I don't think they're around anymore. But then we're at this party doing this late night barn thing, in Iowa, and that Russian guy is there with his wife, and turns out they were the parents of one of the guys in the band that we were playing with.
Oh.
So I was just like, huh. So,
Well then.
Yeah.
And he's your neighbor, apparently?
yeah, but yeah, it was just down the street. So,
Huh.
and yeah, no, and then that song is well, none of the songs I write are usually ever really about one thing. It's usually kind of I don't know. I like to mix the themes around, and
Sure.
I don't know. And I just started to think about, like, there's my girlfriend's death, and then it was like, and then like my dog's death, and I was like, I don't know. In my mind, I was making up the scenario where all these different deaths were like chess moves in a big chess game, and that was kind of what the rook part is in there. So yeah.
I risked my rook based on a look. Now there's blood on the road, fur getting cold. For they ran on into the must. But when said and done, just another story. Placed my pawns, gave them to bands, placed them on lawns. For 6 long years we've been at home. But when said and done, just another story. Now sitting there waiting, oh so frustrated, you're gone. drumming, we're coming to carry you home. Whoa. The Russians are coming, the drums keep on drumming, guitars keep on strumming. We're coming to carry you home. Whoa.
You know, the world does get a lot smaller when you get into your network of people that you know, and to draw it back to, you know, seeing this guy that kind of helped you grieve in this very sudden, you know, moment of shock for you.
Yeah.
And just to see this guy at a show, that's a pretty interesting series of events there. So I can imagine that,
Yeah.
you know, you would want to solidify that memory with a song. And, you know, I have to say, a lot of people, when they do write songs, it's more just to kind of feel a catharsis. And it's like the poetry or whatever surrounding the song may not be about something really specific. So I would imagine when you're given that opportunity, you know, to remember and have a specific memory attached to your music be a pretty cool thing. So,
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah, because most of us, you know, memories are sort of this abstract thing, right? Where even when you're recalling them, you know, they might not be exactly how it actually happened.
Yeah.
But if you have this specific tangible thing to always go back to, I would imagine it at least, you know, keeps it more, you know, concrete throughout your life.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Sad,
Yeah.
given this song, but still a part
Yeah.
of your life, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the last song, which I think this is off your most recent record, right?
Yeah.
Unexpected News.
Yeah.
So what's this one about?
So that one, you know, but like I said, about a lot of different things, but most specifically, it is about my father's death, which was just 3 years ago. So, which actually, you know, ended up playing a big role in that whole album. But, you know, that being that, you know, I mean, it basically, you know, because I found him, basically. So that's what that song is about. Because I went to his apartment and I found him there. So that's what that song is about, which is, and you know, and then the chorus where I say, like, I don't know how to tell my brother because I have a little half brother. He's 13 now, and he has severe autism, and he's nonverbal. And you know, but we have the same dad. And I just, you know, it was kind of like this thing of like, I didn't really know how to explain it to him, and that's kind of what that song was about too, the chorus anyway.
Some unexpected news was hanging behind the door, and I said, well, I don't want to live that way again. I don't want to leave you stranded with unexpected news, with undetected clues, this unignited fuse. Well, I don't want to leave you stranded. Myself arriving at a later time, and I don't want to see your crying face. I don't want to be disbanded by unexpected news, by unexpected clues, an uninvited muse. Well, I don't want to be disbanded. Oh, minutes, my unconnected clues are these unaffected blues. Well, I don't wanna be commanded.
So it's especially difficult, obviously.
Yeah, and then we ended up. He is actually his voice. His vocalizations are on that song too. At the end,
okay.
We recorded, him just vocalizing and stuff, and he's in there at the end.
Sure.
So,
yeah, and I mean, explaining death to a little kid is hard enough, especially with that barrier of communication there as well. So. Yeah,
because just all he knows is our dad just isn't around anymore. That's all he.
Yeah.
So
right.
But so that was just and so I mean I don't usually even get that specific in songs. So that one was more where I was a little more specific and
okay.
Yeah. But and then what else? Oh yeah, this was strange too because I remember I was when I was writing that song I was sitting down I was trying to think of things that rhymed with unexpected news, and this friend Jacob, but he lived in Iowa, and I'm sitting down and writing this song trying to think of things that rhyme with unexpected news, and all of a sudden he calls me and he says he's in St. Paul and wants to see if I want to hang out, and I was like, huh. And the thing is and he came over with his sister, and the thing is they're Jewish. So then right after he called me I was like, oh, unexpected Jews. But I didn't put that in the song obviously, but and then actually a month after that he died.
Oh
so,
boy!
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Oh damn, man!
Yeah, so there's a lot of death and Dead Larry stories. I'm sure Joe probably told you maybe some of his stories too. So
yeah, with his late girlfriend, I don't remember her name, but I follow him on Facebook, so I do know, about her a little bit, and yeah, he did talk about her. So yeah, there is definitely quite a bit of tragedy that follows around Dead Larry. I think all of us certainly have these sort of things that happen. But I mean, I gotta say, man, I don't know. I've known one person that I wasn't even really close to that died at a young age. So I mean, I can only try to empathize, and I can't actually relate to what that's like. To have a really close friend or God forbid a girlfriend pass away. So I mean, condolences out to you because I mean, you both seem like very happy people considering. I mean, tragedies don't destroy our lives. Obviously, they are brief moments of terribleness. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, even though these are sort of the grounding stories that make your guys' music, you wouldn't think it if you were just an outside observer watching your guys' show, because it is very, very fun and uplifting, kind of music, more in the jam band sort of scene. So you're definitely getting that happy kind of cathartic experience from your guys' music. So it's kind of weird how it contrasts what informs the music more or less. Yeah. Well, I'd say we definitely have a lot of happy sounding songs that are about really sad things. Yeah. And I love that when you can do that, very well. Yeah. So, yeah. And I suppose this sort of leads me pretty easily into my last topic, which is mortality. And specifically, the question that I like to ask is, do you remember a specific moment in your childhood when you sort of maybe realized your own mortality, where, you know, that first time where you kind of, it clicked for you and it kind of kept you up at night? Anything specific like that you can think of?
Oh, well, let me think. I mean, I feel it's hard to pinpoint. I feel, well, like I said, I went to Catholic school until I was
so
13.
The fear of God has always been in you, really.
So, you know, there's a lot of, you know, in Catholic churches, I mean, you got a lot of death and blood and everything. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. So, but I suppose, you know, actually, I think, I don't remember exactly when this was, but I remember that the first time that my dad told me the story of how his dad died, because he died before I was born, and I was named after him. And I'd say that I remember him telling me that story, and I think that when learning that there was another Mark McGuiness, you know, that died, because I was, you know, that was his name, I guess that was definitely something that really made me realize my own mortality when he told me that story for the first time. You know, and I was probably, you know, I was probably 6 or 7 then, I would think. Yeah. So, yeah.
At least you were named after your grandfather as well, because I've noticed this with some people who are named after their father's name, like their so-and-so junior. It's like they kind of have this expectation of what to live up to. Like, you're never as good of a man as your father, which I think a lot of us sort of have that worry. That we're not as good as our parents or whatever, but it, you know, kind of an odd twist of events that you're at least named after someone that you don't have to expect to live up to.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, just sort of a tangential point.
Yeah,
that I'd
exactly.
like to make. But I'm sort of curious. You know, a lot of my guests have been from upbringings that were Christian faith and whatnot. So I'm always kind of curious to get into the theology when we get to death. So I suppose the first thing would be, are you still a religious or spiritual person in any way, or are you more of a materialist now?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not. It's like with the Catholic stuff, I don't really think about that as a spiritual thing or anything, but I think of like all like the ceremony of it and stuff, like, and I just, you know, and I don't know, how would I put it? I do like all, like, you know, the big Gothic cathedrals, and then just kind of like
the architecture is really beautiful. I work in a lot of churches, and I'm always awestruck by the way the cathedrals look, especially in Catholic churches. They make especially close attention to detail in their architecture. But
yeah, it's you know, so I mean, I just think about this, or even like, you know, all these prayers that I have memorized from school in my head, and you know, sometimes I'll if I say them, it's really more of a superstitious thing. It's not as much as a spiritual thing. Almost like, you know, like when you know, somebody has to throw salt over their shoulder when they spill salt, you know. So
sure. So you still do kind of recite prayers a little bit? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, sometimes. Yeah, actually, our first show ever, I led all the other guys in prayer, which they thought was really weird. But I was just like, hey, you know, I mean, it couldn't hurt, right? So because it was that first battle of the bands,
right?
And yeah, so I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's just something that's just like kind of a part of me, but I definitely wouldn't really consider myself too religious.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I can totally relate to that. I was brought up Lutheran, and I still kind of look fondly back at, you know, Sunday school and Bible study and whatnot, because I feel like I learned a lot about myself and about just how people work when I was in these classes. Yeah. You know, and I think I was blessed with a preacher who was very open sort of person. Like, he was the philosophy professor at the community college in the neighboring town. So, I mean, he wasn't like this strict, like, fire and brimstone kind of guy. And I'd like to even think that he's the person that made me question my faith
Yeah.
to get me to the place that I'm at right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe not a lot of people get a religious leader that's that type of person, you know, because I mean, obviously there's a sort of fundamentalism to him. I mean, he's still a preacher at a Lutheran church, you know, but I guess I'm just kind of curious if in your experience, if there was anybody like that in your church that, you know, kind of taught you something more than just about scripture itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, that would still go back to my dad because with him, he was a history professor too. So he was really always all about, you know, basically teaching me about like all the history of things. And like, he would always take me to like these old cemeteries and like old churches that were just out in the country and stuff. And he just always put this emphasis on like, I guess the story from a historical standpoint was just really important to him. And I guess, I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but it was a different way of thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, as far as teachers and stuff, yeah, not really.
Not any religious teachers other than your father, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we had there was like a Catholic education class and throughout school, but even then it was just, I don't know, we just like watched Bible cartoons. So.
Yeah, I remember those. And you know what's funny about the religious cartoons is you never quite, or like when they pull out the TV in church, I was never quite as excited about the TV coming out in church as I was during school. You know, when I was a kid, I would always kind of not want to watch the biblical stuff.
Yeah.
I would rather kind of converse about, you know, Bible study, I guess, rather than watch some boring flick that was made with like 70s era special effects, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Those really terribly done, you know, stories. But yeah, so I suppose one thing I do want to touch on before we're done here. So you said your dad was a history professor, right? Mm-hmm. Was he like a specifically knowledgeable in one era of history? Or?
Mostly, well, it was Western civilization and anthropology was
okay.
Basically. So, you know, he, like before I was born, he was an archaeologist for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
You know, he had a scar on his finger from when he got bit by a king cobra in Egypt when he was digging for something. So, and definitely ancient Sumeria was definitely his thing. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So did he impart any kind of wisdom about that to you that you can think of?
I mean, there's so much.
Probably. Yeah, there's probably a lot.
Because he was I mean, anytime hanging out with him, there would just be kind of a random lecture on some topic that
Sure.
would happen. So,
man, that'd be a really cool kind of dad to have around, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, you know, and he, you know, my dad also smoked pot. So.
Oh, really?
And when he was stoned, he would really get into the lectures. So.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he had this whole theory about like he wanted to like show how history like repeats itself generationally, and he had like, I still have all these things, these huge charts that just go through specific years going back to like, you know, 1100 BC, like, and it just like showing like different leaders and different birth dates and of people and different like, you know, of times in history where things were more fundamentalist or more, you know, or like more spiritual times or more scientific times, and he just it was wild, man.
Yeah. Sounds interesting. I mean, I really wish that he was still around so I could chat with him because, so I've been getting into history a little bit more lately, and this guy that I've been listening to, and I know I've probably mentioned his name on this program before, but Dan Carlin, he makes, they're not audio books necessarily. They're like long form podcasts, like 4-hour long history lessons, and he'll break them up into like different parts. But anyway, one of the things that he was talking about recently in one of the episodes I was listening to was about the Anabaptists. So they were the, did your dad ever talk about them at all?
I don't think so.
I just thought that maybe with, you know, your family being Catholic and him being a historian or a history major or whatever he would have called himself. But they were essentially a faction of Protestantism that came after Martin Luther transcribed the Bible, or translated the Bible, excuse me. And they were like an extremely radical group that took over this whole town.
Yeah.
And but anyway, the point I was kind of getting at was the church was sort of the structure of government for these people back then. So it's just kind of weird that and we sort of still see this in some parts of the world today, I would imagine. And I'm sure someone who's really adept at history would be able to, see these sort of patterns, which I can really appreciate. When someone can understand history really well and relate it to some kind of, correlate it to something that's happening today, because sometimes it's really hard to get a picture of what exactly was happening in these historical times. But if they can relate it to something that's happening today, some sort of geopolitical situation that's happening today, it can really give you a lot more insight, But in retrospect, when you look at some of these things that have happened in history, it's really hard to even relate to some of it. Like, we can't comprehend, speaking of Martin Luther and the Catholic Church of the day, it's really hard for us to fathom exactly how much of an impact that actually had to bring the Bible to a digestible format for the peasants, more or less, because the clergy at the time had this monopoly on the scripture, and pretty much they can bend the word of God to their whim and be like, this is what God says. Yeah. But really, it's what the clergyman said. Yeah. I think we still kind of have that. People definitely do take a beautiful thing like religion and turn it into something, sinister. Yeah. But yeah, I suppose what I was kind of getting at is history repeats itself, and people probably should pay closer attention to it. And one thing I've been kind of I've been sort of bringing up the topic of the Roman Empire and how America is sort of resembling the structure of the Roman Empire before it fell. So just been kind of trying to get that in people's minds, like, hey, you might want to think about how empires go, because I don't think any one of them had ever been sustainable. I mean, it never really works out eventually. So definitely that is something people forget, over time. Now, I know you guys are on your spring tour right now. I think I can get this out sometime relatively soon. So why don't you let people know kind of where you guys are going to be at next? I think we're going to be in St. Cloud next weekend, and and we're doing a little tour out in Montana. We're going to do some of those, and then our usual stops kind of around Iowa and North Dakota and Wisconsin and Illinois. So, and doing all that leading up to festival season when we have our festival, the Galactic Get Down. Right. So, I was going to give you a chance to plug that. And I'll have two opportunities for that since Joe was on here. But why don't you just kind of let people know where that's at and where they can find tickets and stuff. That's the Galactic Get Down. It's in Lanesboro, Minnesota, which is in kind of southwest Minnesota, pretty close to the Iowa border. So, people, our fans from Iowa and Minnesota can all go there. And it's at the end of June. I want to make sure I have that right. It's this will be our second year. Last year went really well. Everybody really liked it, and then this year, we have an even better lineup. So I think that's gonna. What are some other bands that are going to be there that you can think of? Well, that one guy is also. Oh yeah, that's right. Joe was telling me about that. Yeah, so that was really exciting to get him, and when is it? Oh, I should really know that, huh? End of July. Yeah. Okay. So but it's gonna be great, and people can get to,
tickets online, through our Facebook, and then there'll also be tickets available there. So
I can put them on the show notes too for people to access them easily. So
yeah.
But all right, man. I appreciate you coming down here and sitting down with me. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to.
All right. Thank you all for listening to the very end here so I can tell you goodbye. And thank you simply for listening. I really do appreciate it. And if you remember at the top of the show here, I was talking about a charity project to fund a fence for some Kenyan orphans. So if you want to know more about that, you can visit it at donorseed.com/project/595. And even if you can just send a small amount of money, just $5 or $10 can really help. And it doesn't sound like a lot, and I wish I could give you an amount of fence that amount of money can buy you, but I can assure you it's a hell of a lot more than it could ever buy you in America. Even if you can't afford it, that's totally fine, I get it. But actually the most important thing you can do is share this program with people so that I can attract advertisers, generate ad revenue, and use that as a source of charity. At that point, it's simply having listenership and patronizing sponsors which go towards these charity projects. Anyway, I'd really appreciate it if you guys could hit subscribe on your way out and share this with a friend or two. It would really go a long way. And thank you again, everyone. I will see you next week. But until then, take care of yourself.